was Led Zeppelin with Hey Hey, What Can I Do from 1970. It's Carrie. It's the afternoon state of mind on Penn's Peak Radio. And speaking of Led Zeppelin, we have Paul Sinclair from Get the Let Out on the phone with us. Paul, you there?
I'm right here, Carrie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic, thanks.
All right. So you are going to be at Penn's Peak this weekend. Tomorrow, you're playing 2 shows. You're doing a double header. Tomorrow, you're going to be here. Showtime's at 8. And then Saturday, New Year's Eve, you're doing a 21 and older show that starts at 9. You guys have been here quite a few times before, correct?
Well, actually, from what I'm told, we have actually sold more tickets at Penn's Peak than any other artist that ever performed there. We've actually been playing there since December of '04 and have been back pretty much twice a year since we began, or very not soon after we began, where we do a fall or winter show, and then we'd also do a spring show. And now with the winter show, we've actually added that second one, so we end up doing New Year's Eve and the night before. So it's we just love Penn's Peak so much and are just thrilled to be back.
You definitely have a following out here. I can say that.
Love to hear that.
Can you give us a little background on your band, maybe just like how you got together, how long you've been performing, that sort of thing?
Sure. Well, I guess back in it was 03. The fall of 03 is when the band began. I got a phone call from some local Philadelphia musicians that were looking to put together a Zeppelin show. And they had heard of me because myself and my one guitarist, Paul Hammond, had been performing locally at just a local bar where we'd sit in with the house band on Sunday nights every month, once a month, and we'd do some Zeppelin tunes. And so we kind of, we've been doing that type of rock in this region pretty much for, all of our adult lives and work. We had a little bit of a reputation locally for doing that anyway, but I guess this sort of helped get it into the ears, let's say, of these guys who were looking to put this thing together. So I went and checked it out, and there's a lot of story between point A and point B. But really what it came down to was I didn't really have an interest in doing the tribute thing in the traditional sense. Most people hear tribute band, and they think of impersonators, guys who dress up and pretend that they're like Elvis or the Beatles or whoever.
Right.
And that's what most tribute bands do, the sort of impersonator thing. Mm-hmm. And I had no interest in doing that. I didn't want to pretend that I was Robert Plant. I just loved Led Zeppelin, and I loved singing these songs. And so what we did was more cut from the cloth of what the Fab Four does. The Fab Four is a Beatles show, and the Fab Four incorporates these top-notch musicians such as Jimmy Vivino, the guitar player from Conan O'Brien's band, Will Lee, the bass player from David Letterman's band. So there's all these top-notch New York professional guys that were like, hey, we love the Beatles, let's go out and play the music, but let's do it as close as humanly possible to the record, let's have fun doing it, and go on stages ourselves. I love that concept, and so I adopted it and took it over for doing a Zeppelin show in that fashion, where we go out there as ourselves, and it's 6 of us, and then with Diana joining us for the Battle of Evermore, 7, and we'll utilize members of our crew. We had our manager perform with us at times because he's also a drummer, percussionist, and had him play Fool in the Rain for a lot of years. So we'll do whatever it takes to make the songs happen, and that's really what is important to know about Get the Let Out. If you've not seen the band, is that it's all about recreating those studio versions, which is why you need more than 4 guys, because Led Zeppelin themselves in concert never sounded like their records.
Right.
They were more of a jam band. People enjoy that, and that's great. But I believe that the reason that most of the world loves Led Zeppelin has to do with those wonderful records like the one you just played.
So, in that vein, where you guys play the studio versions live, basically, there's a lot of songs in the Led Zeppelin repertoire that would be very difficult to pull off live. So how do you manage those songs? Do you guys play, do each of you play multiple instruments?
Most everyone in the band does, actually. But really, Andrew Lipke's our secret weapon. He's our multi-instrumentalist who plays everything from, acoustic to electric guitar to keyboards to harmonica, banjo, whatever I throw at him, he does percussion. He's doubling my lead vocal. He sings harmony vocal. So having him is incredibly helpful. But also, Paul Hammond will play, a mandolin as well as acoustic and electric guitars, and he'll do the theremin.
The theremin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, hey, listen.
That's not an easy instrument to master.
No, well, it's lots of fun though, and you can. The way that Zeppelin used it was more sound effects than it was necessarily, musical, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier to do for what we ended up using it for, which is just replicating these records. But again, going to any length to make these songs happen is kind of our specialty. And what I like to say about it is, it's like the goosebump moments in Led Zeppelin, or any music for that matter.
Uh-huh.
Songs that you've played over and over, you've heard these songs, and there's moments you're waiting for. Like, in let's say Thank You by Zeppelin, everyone and their mother is going to sing, my, that line particularly.
Uh-huh.
And there's things like that all over that people want to play air guitar, they want to air drum, they want to sing along. And so when I go to a concert from any group, I'd love to hear the songs the way that I know and recognize them. And so, again, that being the philosophy, that's what we've done. And honestly, with 6 people, it's a lot easier than it would be with 4. I don't really believe that you can play Zeppelin songs with 4 people, like Zeppelin did in concert, but it's really not going to resemble the versions that you know and love, because, when whoever is playing guitar goes to take a guitar solo, now there's no rhythm guitar underneath it, there's no acoustics, no electrics, all it is that one guitar, and so it's going to have a much different sound to it, because all you're having backing up behind that is the bass and drums. So in our situation, we're doing a song like Black Dog.
Mm-hmm.
We can have 3 guys playing guitar doing the riff, when I suspect it might even be 5 guitars on that record. I'm not even sure.
Right.
It's laid down when you, but there's just a lot to the sound. It's very dense, and but it's also the thing that you can't get with even effects is that the discrepancy of when you layer guitars, they're not going to be perfectly in sync just by the nature of a human performance. And so having 3 different people playing those guitars simultaneously helps to, add that element that makes it sound much more like the record. So again, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but I just love to let people know that making those albums come to life, man, that's what we're all about.
Oh, absolutely. So here's a question. When you listen to a record, if you're trying to learn one of these songs, do you ever have to go back and tweak the song later because you've found, like in my experience, if I listen to a song on a record versus on a digital copy, or even on like speakers versus headphones, sometimes you'll pick up different things depending on the format. Have you ever heard something that you're like, oh, I've never heard that before, and you have to go back and tweak the song?
You just outlined our lives. That's exactly what happens. It happens all the time. I mean, songs like Stairway to Heaven, obviously we've been playing Stairway to Heaven in our show from the beginning, but that song has evolved from the way that we first performed it to where it is now, because it's almost embarrassing a little bit that there was a certain point where we recognized, hey, we're still missing one, a guitar part that's really a second 12-string electric that's really important to create the sound of that moment, the big triumphant D suspension chord. There's actually 2 12-string electrics as well as an acoustic, and it wasn't until a couple of years ago we actually added that final piece to the puzzle. And, without giving away all of our little secrets, we're constantly tweaking stuff. That's the beauty of this project, is that trying to replicate someone else's performance, particularly something as, I say, loose and improv like Led Zeppelin, but they did sort of like lay down these versions in the moment and then would build on top of what they believed to be the best version that they had laid down at the time. So it's still an improv, like what they recorded.
Right.
We're trying to replicate an improv note for note, which is really a never-ending chore, because you're trying to go after the nuance of every note. You're trying to replicate the tone, the sound effects, and getting all those things to work, and then as a group for all of us to do that together. a never-ending labor of love that we just really enjoy taking on. And that's, people say, aren't you bored with playing the same songs all the time? And a couple answers to that question. First, no, because we change the set list every single night.
Right.
So many songs to do. We've done 63 of the 73 songs on the original 8 studio records. So there's only 10 more songs left for us to learn.
Oh, wow.
Under our belt. So that keeps it fresh.
Mm-hmm.
But then also just the pursuit of trying to make these songs happen, the way that we all know them. We're never going to get there. You know what I mean? It's a never. You can't ever reach that point of absolute perfection because Jimmy Page might have just bent that note a little bit sharp or a little
yeah,
bit or there's always something that's going to elude us. But it's the never-ending pursuit of that perfection that is a lot of the joy in the project.
Yeah, I imagine that becomes almost like a clinical, it's like clinically studying their songs. Like, does that make you do you think that makes you appreciate their songs more or less at all?
You're just hitting every freaking actually, I tell you, hands down, I have an incredibly much deeper appreciation for Led Zeppelin than I did when the band began. And I was already a fan. These are, Robert Plant is one of 2 singers that really shaped my life in terms of the kind of singing I wanted to do. Is Robert Plant and Steven Tyler. So Zeppelin is huge to me from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, after 13 years of doing this, and as you're saying, studying this music, studying it intensely, and trying to decipher and pick apart and figure out what this is and that is, I am so much more of a fan today than I was the day I began singing in this group.
That's absolutely incredible because that, honestly, I think that could probably go either way. When you're actually studying something and you're trying to figure out, okay, what is this note or what is this instrument, and you're listening to the same thing over and over and over just to get it right, it could probably go either way, where you appreciate it more or appreciate it less, where you don't want to listen to it anymore. Do you know what I mean?
I think you're probably right, but I tend to believe, there's a few factors that would play into that. Like, if someone got into a Zeppelin band that really didn't want to, they didn't care for Zeppelin all that much, they were like, yeah, I like Zeppelin, that's cool, it's fine, it's a casual thing, then I could see this thing maybe, turning somebody, against it, I guess, or make them feel, if they didn't have that passion and love for it to begin with. But it's hard for me to imagine anyone that comes to something like this with, already having a love of Led Zeppelin.
Right.
And then having it not be amplified by this work, to me, it almost seems like it would have to, again, unless you're just simply a very casual fan that doesn't care that much, because to me, all this does is it creates more appreciation, and when you're trying to figure out, and this stuff is so elusive, it's so mysterious. Andrew calls it like voodoo music, because we listen to a track one time, and then we'll listen to it 10 times, and then trying to figure out a part, and then it almost feels as though every time we listen, we hear something kind of different, like almost like the music is changing, which it's not, obviously, but
yeah,
that's how incredibly unique this stuff is, and I attribute a lot of that to the fact that Zeppelin were so. Page was brilliant as a producer, particularly where he knew to leave what I call mistakes, I suppose, where you've got things that are not in tune perfectly or not perfectly in time. He would let go if the overall take felt somewhat magical, or if you thought, man, that was really great, we really nailed it for the most part, but we're just going to leave that one thing. So they would leave these human elements, these mistakes, quote unquote, and those become the endearing things that are not only challenging to replicate, but also give it this, human and yet otherworldly feel all at the same time. So I attribute that to, again, the brilliance of Jimmy Page. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. They were definitely legends. They're legends now. These people are legends now, for sure. I know that Led Zeppelin released some box sets not so long ago. I don't remember when that was. But did you guys get any new material from those box sets? Did they have new releases on there?
there's a few things you talk about. So you got the remastered versions of the original catalog, which Jimmy Page finally completed. As the technology has gotten better, in order to preserve the legacy digitally, he went back and now remastered all the stuff, and that's the stuff they've been releasing the last number of years. And there's alternate versions, or let's say working versions of songs that
that's right,
hear while they're in progress. So there's that, and then there's also in the BBC sessions, which I believe were also just remastered. They released in the '90s originally. And that had songs like Traveling Riverside Blues, or I guess The Girl with the Long Brown Wavy Hair. So there's some additional material that came out as a result of the BBC sessions that we absolutely have. We do Traveling Riverside Blues. That's an additional song that wasn't part of the original catalog that we have taken on with this project. So we've got a song here or there, but we didn't get into doing any of the alternate versions or anything at this point. That's kind of the neat thing about this project, too, and I knew this when the thing began, is I thought, as this thing expands and grows, and we play so many places and go back a number of times to places, it'll give us the opportunity, like with Penn's Peak, we've been there, I want to say, I believe it's over 26 or 27 times we played there. And so with that, we always like to give people a fresh show and different stuff, and we try to always break out different songs we haven't done over the course of this time. Well, I thought, with a project like this, and Zeppelin, as you're saying, they're not just legendary, they're mythological at this point.
Absolutely.
So, and people's love and appreciation for this, and all things Led Zeppelin-centric, you could literally, and I think we'll probably do this at some point, maybe touch on some Zeppelin-centric stuff, like, there's no reason we couldn't, just for fun and make the show interesting, break out at some point a song by The Firm, which was Jimmy Page. When Zeppelin broke up, he put together a band with Paul Rodgers, and they had a couple successful songs like Radioactive or Closer. I mean, now that's a bit of a stretch at this point, but it's something that I could see because, anything surrounding Zeppelin, like even doing like a Robert Plant solo song or something, or a Jimmy Page solo piece, or these are all, as far as I'm concerned, on the table and something that we could do at some point. But as of this point, no, we've not taken on any additional songs from those recent re-releases.
Right.
But, you just never know. But because, again, we're like, what? I even toyed with the idea of, hey, wouldn't it be fun at one point, even though, yes, we're all about the studio stuff, there are certain occasional live versions that we've heard throughout the course of our lives that, we know of and people will refer to as being, really stellar versions. Like, Since I've Been Loving You from The Song Remains the Same is actually a really cool version. It's very different than the album, but it's a very, very cool version unto itself. And I thought, in following with the style or tradition of what Get the Let Out does, being that we're all about recreating note for note these performances, well, hey, who's to say we couldn't at one point, break out a note for note recreation of one of those?
Absolutely.
So who knows? But I mean, the main thing about us is, again, I want people to come to our show and to be able to sing along and play air guitar and play air drums and hear all the parts that gave them goosebumps when they listened to the records, and hopefully we can, let them relive some of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Where can people check you out online?
Well, they can very easily do a Google search. I get the let out as long as they spell LED correctly. But beyond that, they can go directly to GTLORocks.com. GTLORocks.com and see all our tour dates, and we tour year round. So we're, unlike, I guess, there's a pattern with a lot of bands that, mainly original bands. They go out, they record a record, they release it, they go out and tour for a few months, then they'll go back home and do some more work on more albums. And so forth. But our life is all live performance, so we're out, every week somewhere, and then we do 2 big tours a year. There's lots of opportunities to catch us playing all over the country and beyond.
And I'm sure there's lots of practice in between.
Well, at this point, not so much, because we have gotten the majority of the catalog down. It's only the tweaks we do, and we handle a lot of that at sound check. So, for instance, we realized not long ago that we were missing an instrument in the Wanton song off of Physical Graffiti, and so we had Andrew start playing the clavinet, it's kind of buried in there, but I noticed it at one time when I was listening through recently. And so, so at soundcheck, we said, hey, guys, we're going to do the song, the next couple of shows. Why don't we, work it up and get it right, and so we work in this part. So our sound checks at every show, we do for a good half hour, maybe 45 minutes before, obviously before the show to get all the sounds right and to just get our musical footing on the stage, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll go through stuff like that and make the best use of the time. So we also recently brought back a song, Royal Orleans, off of Presence, and that was one we hadn't played in a while. So I thought, while we're on tour out west, why don't we, to work the song up, why don't we do it at a number of sound checks? And then once we feel good about it, we'll break it out there. Instead of actually getting together outside of the band for rehearsals, we're actually utilizing all this time on the road to the most benefit. And it works out beautifully. So, not quite the rehearsal you would think, but still everyone is focused on their own individual things. So when I send the set list out each week in advance so the guys know what songs to go over,
mm-hmm.
they can revisit. And lots of times what happens, I'll break out these songs you haven't done in a while, they'll be listening through, and then someone will come to the show. I'll see somebody tomorrow, they'll be like, hey, I was listening through to Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, and I noticed this one little thing here. And that happens all the time.
Oh.
I love this. I mean, I love it so much I can't even tell you, because it's that much more fun once you've got the bulk of the song pretty much, obviously the arrangements all worked out. We've been playing the songs for years. But when you stumble on something new, then can incorporate it and unveil it, inevitably, which you hear people say,
right.
You won't even know it. They tell us a lot of times, well, Paul, you guys, you're better than ever. You sound better. Like, I can't believe it. You get better each time I see you. I've heard that so much, and I don't take it lightly. It means the world to me that people come back and see us over and over again. I mean, we got one of our fans has seen us over 205 times.
Whoa!
Literally.
Whoa!
Yeah. We've signed all his set list because after the show, he'll come through the meet and greet and we'll sign his set list that he's gotten from the stagehands. And this James Foudy is a fan of ours. He's been following us since '08, and there's many people that I can look to, thankfully, that have seen us, so many times, not in James' league necessarily, but it's not uncommon to hear people like, oh yeah, I've seen you 17 times, 27 times, 50 times. I'm like, man, that's, it really, it's very nice and speaks to how they enjoy our group, but it also really speaks to the power of the music of Zeppelin, that they love this music so much that they want to keep on coming back to experience, these songs. We change the set each time, but
mm-hmm.
there's certainly consistent numbers that they're going to hear each time as well, and they just love to continually experience this stuff. So that means everything to me. So I'm just so thrilled that is the case, and we encourage it. Follow James Foudy's footsteps. Come through 200 times.
Definitely. I mean, you're transporting people. Like, there's people who have been fans of Led Zeppelin since the beginning, and you're kind of transporting these people back to that time when I don't want to say like when they loved them so much, but when they were actually out there performing, and that's a great feeling to be bringing that to someone, I'm sure.
Well, it is because I'm older. I'm 51 years old, so
mm-hmm.
I actually was born in 1965, and the soundtrack of my life was the Beatles and the Doors and the Stones and Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Carly Simon and James Taylor and the Bee Gees and all the great 70s and 60s music. So these bands all existed when I was a little kid, and so I was always waxing nostalgic. Before these bands were even long gone. By the early 1980s, I was like, longing for the music of the 70s because I just loved that music so much. So to be able to be in a situation where I'm actually helping to keep this alive for future generations, for younger people that never got to experience and never will get to experience those bands because they're long gone.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to, for them to hear Led Zeppelin music performed live in concert, and in a way that I believe that most people kind of again look for, like I do when going to a concert, is hearing the songs the way you recognize them. And Zeppelin themselves never played them that way, really. So we're offering something that you wouldn't have even gotten had they been alive to hear Zeppelin back in '75. Our experience, we're not Led Zeppelin certainly, but the approach to the material being, that we're trying to replicate the studio versions, it just tends to be a very popular way of doing stuff. Because again, I'm a concert going fan first and foremost. I know what I want when I go to hear a performer, I want to be able to sit there and sing along.
Yep.
I want to enjoy the music and soak it in. And here comes that part that I love so much. And oh my God, they nailed it. That's what I want to experience, and that's what hopefully our fans get to experience from us. So that's, yes, absolutely keeping us alive for the future. It warms my heart, truly.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Paul. Paul, the lead singer of Get the Let Out. Just to plug the shows one more time, tomorrow you guys are performing at Penn's Peak. Showtime's at 8 o'clock, and then on Saturday, New Year's Eve, you're doing a 21 and older show, which, by the way, comes with a complimentary beverage. That starts at 9 p.m. You're going to be rocking people into the new year on Saturday.
That's the tradition now. It's our third year in a row doing it at Peak, and it's just been growing each year and lots of fun. Very much looking forward to it. As always, we just love the Peak. I always say coming to the Peak is it's like Christmas Day for me.
Well, we love having you here, and thank you so much again. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow and Saturday. Good luck with everything you guys are doing, and thank you so much.
And Carrie, thank you so much for helping us. Really appreciate anyone helping us to spread the good word of our show and the beautiful music of Led Zeppelin. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Have a good one, Paul.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.